So we welcome back. He's been on the campaign trail. He's been in New Hampshire. He's made a presidential announcement since the last time we had him on our show, and he used to co-host with me on Mondays. Steve Laffey, welcome back to In the Dugout.
Mike, great to be with you, and lots to look forward to this week. And so, just been a great week. I just came off Newsmax live a couple hours ago, and just a lot of things going on.
Yeah, I saw your interview on Good Morning America. Now, where are you in? You're in Rhode Island right now, right?
I am right now, yes.
And you're going to be here all week. And we have an announcement as I bring up the story. Why don't you tell us what we're doing together? Why don't you make the announcement for Friday, Steve
Yeah,
Laffey?
we're having a big press conference in Rhode Island. I wanted to do at least one day here where I'm from, one day up in Maine, one day, and as I'm living in New Hampshire. And so on Friday at 12:30, we're going to be at the Chapel Grill restaurant, which is centrally located. During being mayor, we started to rebuild that area. The private developers did. But it was great to watch, and
You had a hand in that,
great.
yep.
And so we're going to be there 12:30. Urge people to come out. You can ask questions. Mike's going to be the moderator, and I'll be talking about some very specific problems our country has to go through, has to find some solutions to, because it really is late in the game, which is why I'm running, Michael. I am a financial expert, and the country is just not willing to directly confront its problems. The candidates aren't. Even what's happened with SVB Bank, it's just really sad to watch what other candidates are saying. It
Well,
really
this is right up your alley, right? I mean, you are a finance expert. You're a businessman. You're a senior at one of these regional banks that everybody's talking about right now, investment firms. The SBC, the Silicon Valley Bank, let's just get your perspective on it. Some people are saying it's because of their woke investments and woke management. Some people saying it's market conditions, with the low interest rates and the low bonds, and then the rapidly rising interest rates and inflation. What happened out there in your view with SBC, and why are you the perfect guy to make sure it doesn't keep happening?
Well, I seem to be the only person who understands it. The good governor of Florida just came on CNBC, and Governor DeSantis and talked about they were probably too involved in woke things or DEI and other stuff. None of that's true. I just want to be very frank with people. Like, that's great that he's a Yale lawyer. He seems to be a very smart man. There's nothing wrong with his family. They seem to be wonderful people. We need a financial expert to run this, because that combination with Mr. Vivek, who's running and getting a lot of attention, he's 0%.
Ramaswamy, yep.
Yeah, he wants to increase FDIC insurance to $10 million per account, so there won't be at the bank. On the face of it, that's just impossible. Listen, just so you know, when you bank, people don't even know this. You go into a bank, you put some money in, you pay for the insurance, 0.006 or 0.008.
So there actually is a fund.
Yeah, that we pay for. If you have an account,
okay. I mean, but there is money set aside. It's not
but
the budget, right?
But nowhere near enough to pay out a complete collect. Just nowhere near, like nothing. But on the occasion when there's a problem, because you bank at Bank Rhode Island, I'm talking in Rhode Island terms, let's say, right, or whatever bank, you can't bank at Fleet because it doesn't exist. But you bank at Bank Rhode Island, you pay for the insurance, but it's never designed. It wasn't designed for $250,000 an account. But so back to Governor DeSantis, for example, this is crazy talk. Like, sure, they spent 7 hours on a website to talk about some woke things, which is to please the people in San Francisco. It has nothing to do with the problem. The problem,
it's a tiny amount only, right?
Every one of these banks, you have a risk manager, you have a CFO, you have a CEO, you have people who watch this stuff. So, but here's the problem with almost every single financial crisis. Easy money comes in, no matter where it was, in tulip bulb world back in Netherlands, or the 2008, the easy money was about buying homes when you put nothing down. They were called liar's loans. When that ends, because it get ramped up until it can't go any farther, and when someone had to raise rates this time because they were so far behind the curve on inflation, it's another story about the Fed. You have a mismatch of assets and liabilities, either in or in both amount or duration. Duration meaning long versus short-term nature. So in this particular case in SVB, and everybody had to know they were doing it. They were doing it because they thought it had gone on so long that it would never end. They took in short-term deposits instead of buying short-term money, right? Which paid zero. They thought it was really good to go out to 30-year bonds, which are very risky when the rates change. If people, I'm not going to do a whole lesson here on finance.
You're saying
But
it was clear mismanagement and misreading of the
yes,
market.
yes, but it went on for a while where they're okay getting 1.5, let's say, on the 30-year bond. But when rates started to rise even a little bit, they didn't cover it. They thought it would be a temporary thing. But when rates got to 3.5%, they were broke. They were totally broke, and they couldn't. In order to sell some of this stuff, it was worth far less than the bank was worth,
Oh.
and they're broke.
So I think you agree that the government shouldn't be mandating and controlling decisions made by private institutions. But I think you will agree that because of the awful, Biden administration and even Trump to some extent with the locking down of the economy, the need then, or the perceived need at least for trillions of dollars in recovery, which caused the inflation, which then caused the Fed to raise rates, even if they shouldn't have, that it's all those market conditions that made it ideal for mismanagement to happen. Would you agree with that?
Not all of it.
Okay.
Only the part about rates being unnaturally low by the Fed is what caused people to reach for yield. Whether it was buying, an individual said, I can't, I used to keep $50,000 at Fleet Bank or whatever they did. And now they're paying me zero starting in 2008, 2009, right? So I went into the stock market. I went into something else. I bought a bigger home because rates were low. People bought more out to the future than they normally would have.
But that's a private sector smart decision. But what would a President Laffey do to help make sure this doesn't happen? You can't be making those decisions for bank as president. So what would a President Laffey do?
I've stated very clearly for 17 years that the Federal Reserve cannot have a dual mandate, meaning they're both in charge of unemployment and inflation at the same time. It's a very easy thing to talk about if you've taken Algebra 1. You can't solve 3 unknowns with 2 equations. It's too much. They can't do it. They never could, by the way. The Federal Reserve should only be in charge of the money, and their charge is to keep inflation at 0. And whether they use an esoteric term like the Taylor rule, which is a formulaic way, or you get 15 guys from Cranston East who just know money. It's not hard, by the way. When you look at the money supply and you look at the velocity of money, it's not hard to see it was going to happen. I made a lot of money in silver, knowing in 2020 that the money supply was from 2012 to 2020, the money supply went up at about 5%. The velocity went down at about 5% because the Fed wanted the velocity to go down.
Yeah.
But they went up 20% very quickly, and the velocity did not go down 20%. We were going to have 8% inflation for 2 straight years, hobbling and destroying the middle class. So the answers are very easy. 1, I just told you about the Federal Reserve, right? 2, we need to break up the banks. Very easy. We can't have 5 banks with 70% of the assets of America. In 2008, they had 32%. Then they came up with Frank Dodd or Dodd-Frank, whatever you want to call it, right? And of course, Mr. Frank was working at one of the banks that just got closed, right? Of course. This is what these corrupt politicians do. That's why if you go to stevelaffey.com, you'll see the complete cycle of death in my issues. Really bad schools, Federal Reserve, massive corruption, right? These things, China, it goes around in a circle. But back to money. The other candidates running for president don't understand what I'm talking about, obviously. Like, for example, it wouldn't be that hard after you break up the banks to make sure no bank is too large to move to limited purpose banking. By the way, there'd be no debt.
But I want to ask you this. You're showing off your MBA skills here, but I need to ask you. So I want to take a step back. You just spent a few weeks in New Hampshire. I get frustrated. I watch news shows. They talk about announced presidential candidates. You're announced. Other ones are only speculative. Is your message breaking through? How would you categorize your campaigning in New Hampshire, and what do you have to do to break through this media?
It's going to take a
bias
while,
or whatever you want to call it.
Well, it's going to take a while. I always knew that, but we've had a lot of, like, I was on Newsmax Live again for the third time this month. I've been featured in a lot Daily Mail, a lot of things to help me break through. Now, remember, I'm not a current office holder. I say things that are extremely hard to listen to, in a sense that it's the truth. A lot of people are stuck on Donald Trump. There's going to be a Great Depression. He starts screaming. If you want that, you have a candidate. It's not going to help folks. but I am going to break through. I am starting to break through, and it's going to take. I thought it would take 3 to 6 months. That's what I told you a long time ago, and I told everybody. And so this is the chicken and the egg problem. Do you want someone with my qualifications? Taught the top finance course at the University of Rhode Island, helped run an investment banking financial situation, sold it at the top of the market. You people in Rhode Island witnessed the most rapid turnaround in state or municipal history in the United States of America.
And Grant,
by me. Bond rating up 8 notches in 3.5 years. It never happened before. It's never happened again. So if you want that, a financial expert who actually knows how to put the right people in the right place at the right time, you got me. If you want shouting and screaming and so forth, you got other people. If you want people continually talking about SVB Bank as a woke problem, you've got Governor DeSantis. He's in second place in the polls.
not the real issue, is it?
Listen, his issue, and by the way, Republican governors' issues on education to stop the wokeness, but still give schools some more money, is a terrible idea. The wokeness is bad, and it's 3% of the problem. It's really bad. It's got to be stopped. The real problem, how about talking about if you went to Cranston East right now, if you went over to Situate High School and we grabbed an Algebra 2 textbook, how many pages do you think are missing? What is the copyright date on those books? Michael, some of the books they're using were books you used, you thought they were old then. The public schools are in terrible shape. We need to stop the wokeness. I get it. But the real answer is they're broke. They're not going to get fixed.
So let's end our talk with just looking ahead on Friday. We're hoping we're going to be going down to the Chapel Grill tomorrow to see if the Wi-Fi is sufficient. We're hoping to live stream your event. We're hosting it. You'll be happy to take, you'll be giving some commentary. You'll be taking some questions from the attendees who will be privately invited, and you'll be taking questions from attending media. I understand there's an international media entity going to be there.
One way to help break out, the largest news organization in the world and the oldest is called the AFP. It's just picture the AP, Associated Press of Europe. They have a large office in New York. Their chief reporter is spending the day with me. You'll see me all throughout Rhode Island, wherever you want to be. We'll be at a lot of different places all day.
So he's shadowing you all day.
Yes, and there'll be a big article, be a lot of video camera crews with him and so forth. So that's one way to break out, right? Somehow, finally, we'll break through in a way that we have to. But it can be done. And I think, as I announced, I told people, Michael, if you read the announcement statement, I've been telling you the financial crisis is going to come. I told you China was a problem when I ran for the U.S. Senate in 2005. I made a movie about it. If there's anybody who's been more right than me about what's happening, find them. They don't exist.
Well, I can attest to that. On my show, you nailed the inflation and the recession. You nailed it. I mean, months ahead before it became obvious to everybody. So clearly, you have a little edge up in that area. Steve, we look forward. Now, thank you for accepting our invitation to our town hall on Friday. We're really looking forward to doing that. We're going to put out a media release tomorrow on it. And I know you've started to spread the word, and we look forward to having a good event. And folks, if you're watching right now, you can hopefully tune in at 12:30 Friday for a special edition. We'll be covering the town hall with presidential candidate Steve Laffey. Steve, thanks for your generous time today. Good luck on the campaign trail. We'll see you Friday.
We'll see you Friday. Thanks, my friend.